The Podski with John Baker. For over 1 year, the revolutionary force in audio entertainment.
Ooh, yeah!
Brother,
Let me talk to you! Freak out, freak out!
I just had an out-of-body experience!
The insane in the membrane!
Brother,
Yeah! And I'm here for only one reason, and that's to take it to the limit, yeah!
somebody stop the damn man!
I'm living on the edge.
Who is your daddy?
Hello and welcome to the Podski. I'm your host, Johnny Bakeshow, and ringside with me is Teddy Mongoose. A few weeks ago, Teddy mentioned doing a Bash at the Beach show, and we're going to be doing that today. We are reviewing the first Bash at the Beach from 30 years ago in 1994. It's Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan in the main event. But before we get started, we want to remind you that the Eddie Guerrero bonus show is coming soon. It is recorded, and we're going to get started on the Scott Hall bonus episode for next month as a part of subscriber rewards. So remember, when you subscribe, you unlock these bonus shows. So keep tuning in and subscribing and checking out the channel. It really helps us out. But Teddy, 1994, where we're going to today, was, again, another crazy time in the wrestling business. And we need some nuggets. I know that you got some news and you're going to give us a lot of good stuff here, but I'm excited to review this show. So would you please get us kicked off here with our jam-packed Bash at the Beach 94 show?
Yeah, absolutely. So I need to start this week by saying that in this point in my life, I am a 9-year-old Hulkamaniac. Mania 9 is the first pay-per-view that I was ever able to get live. That night, Hogan wins the title. I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. Since then, I've grown to understand that was some, rotten, dirty, not going to work for me, brother, kind of business and all that. But then when Hulk lost to Yoko, the King of the Ring 93, I was so upset. I write a letter to Jack Tunney, but my mom probably just sneakily threw into the trash once I handed it to her. And when I turned on WCW Saturday Night one day in June, because again, I'm in elementary school, so I'm not inside on anything. And I see the Hulkster parade going on. I was going insane. Like all I wanted was, where'd you go, Hulk? And that doesn't mean that I wasn't loving me some Razor Ramon and Bret Hart and all the other things that were going on in the other company. But I got that little taste of Hulkster back in my life, and he was taken just as quickly as he was given to me, And so I was so excited for Hulk. I'm at peak Hulk fandom here, and I absolutely marked out all the things that I was reading, was bringing back all the feels and the nostalgia. And dude, I cannot wait to talk about this show.
Yes, I'm very excited to talk about this show. Let us know in the comments below if you remember this show, or if you were a Hulkamaniac. Let us know your favorite Hulkamania moment. This is certainly up there, obviously, for Teddy, but let us know in the comments. We'd love to chat with you about it. We got a lot of wrestling takes here, especially about this show. So let us know what you think about Hulkster coming to WCW in 1994.
Okay, so we're going to start with the WCW Business in March of 94. And the reason that we're going to start in March of 94 is our timeline is going to start with the Hogan talks that are going to happen in April. So in March of 94, oh my gosh, we think Hulk is coming, WCW's average attendance is 1,430 people per show, which is down 19% year over year. Their estimated average gate in March of 94 is $12,500. That's actually up a little bit compared to the previous year. For context, WWF at this time is doing $40,000 a gate per show, and they are doing $12,000.
That's significant more money.
Yes. They also, at this point in time, WCW contracts are all guaranteed, and several people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the WWF is working on those whatever it was, $100 a week guaranteed, more money for TV. And then, the higher up the card you get or whatever. So very different pay structure business models here. And then in March of 1994, the WCW sold out 0 house shows, which is down from 5% of their house shows the year before.
Man, they have no sellouts at all.
None. They had none in February either. So times are tough and they got to do something drastic. So before we get into that something drastic, John, would you please enlighten us as to some of that money, honey, that the Hulkster has come to light that he's been earning here over the past couple of years of his career?
Yes. So this comes to us from the April 18th, 1994 Wrestling Observer newsletter. And it is believed that, and has apparently been testified in court, that including merchandising and videotape royalties, that the largest payoff ever for one match was Hulk Hogan receiving close to $1 million for his 1989 WrestleMania match with Randy Savage. Main eventers, even when buy rates were at their peak, would receive payoff $125,000 to $150,000 range. So that's significantly more money that he made from that one payoff.
This is $1 million in 1989 money.
I can't even imagine what that is now.
There is an episode of Garfield and Friends from the early 90s where John Arbuckle gets Garfield onto a television show where cats do silly things. And the prize is $1,000. And he literally says to Garfield, "Oh my gosh, my financial woes will all be cured." And I'm thinking, brother, that's like 3 weeks of groceries now.
Right. Oh my word.
Yeah. So $1 million in 89 money is insane. Go ahead.
Yes. Continuing on here. Hogan also received over $100,000 for his matches with Antonio Inoki in the Tokyo Dome and the Fukuoka Dome. So he earned just over $100,000 for those matches alone.
So with those payoffs, there are reports that at this time, the WCW and Hogan are expected to come to an agreement this week with the idea that Hogan would be in Chicago for the Spring Stampede pay-per-view. WCW was making Hogan its crown jewel even before he was signed. So they were putting him as priority A, and he's not even there yet. Bischoff canceled a meeting on April 11th with the AAA and IWC, which later on that year, we get that Worlds Collide show that we talk about in the Eddie bonus show. Please check that out. To finalize a deal with Hulk. So he skated on the partnership promotions just to try to land the Hulkster. With the nature of Hulk's release, Titan has 21 days to match the offer. And if they did, Hogan wouldn't be able to go to WCW.
So this would be the reason why he had all the crazy incentives and revenue percentages. And what else can you give the Hulkster at this point?
Right. And that's just it. Is the idea is that WCW would not be able to get him unless they put something that Vince would never get. Or never give, rather. Okay. And we've heard shoot interviews for years, and especially with Hall and Nash, which Hall's coming up, so I'm sure we'll do some talking about that next month. Mm-hmm. But Hall had said that, I go to Vince and I want to stay. And I just say, "Hey, Vince, how about merchandise? If you move that decimal point one place over, that wouldn't hurt the McMahon family, but it would sure help the Hall family." And he's like, and Vince is like, "Oh, Scott, I can't do that. If I do that, I have to do that with Taker and with Brett and with Shawn." So Vince was a total penny pincher about those kinds of things. So that is why they put those escalators into there.
Gotcha.
So the timetable for the start date right now is going to be the 7/17 show against Ric Flair.
It's interesting that with Hogan pretty much eminently coming in, Pillman and Austin are in contract turmoil as well. Pillman's contract has expired and he's working Spring Stampede, but didn't have any bookings after April 17th. Pillman has an offer at around 50 to 60K pay cut. So his offer is for less money. Austin is on the books through the end of May, but his contract expires before that. And even though he wanted a juicy raise, WCW offered him a contract with a pay cut as well. The thought is that they'll make the move for Austin, but Pillman is gone.
And Austin's all over these shows, man.
Mhm.
Like that's the thing is Pillman is sprinkled here and there, but Austin's all over it. And so the fact that they've come to him with less too, ugh, like just not a good look, man.
Mm-mm.
So jumping forward a week, Hogan and WCW come to terms on April 14th, and the 21-day Titan match window is now open. The deal is believed to be short-term, with Hogan debuting in June at the Clash, having his first match at the Bash at the Beach, and then including 3 total pay-per-views, Bash included, and 3 Clash appearances, as well as 1 U.S. house show tour and 1 European house show tour. So right there is the sort of the rumor parameters of the deal. Short-term, a lot of money. We'll get into the terms later on. A quick stop, though, at the Spring Stampede 94. This show took place on April 17th, and it actually got a 90% thumbs up and only a 2.7% thumbs down from observer readers. There are little nugs and weaves in here that get to the Bash at the Beach. And also, John, I think that this is a really interesting card. Will you please go ahead and take us through it?
We're actually going to mention this show specifically because Hogan was hinted at appearing here. And Mean Gene actually said on Saturday night before the show that he talked to Hogan and Hulk told him that he would be there. Dave said that Hogan was never even scheduled to come to the show, even after their agreement was worked out.
Hashtag that's so WCW.
It's even here in 94. But getting into this card, this show had Johnny B. Bad pinning DDP. My word, I can't wait to talk about Johnny B. Bad later.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Regal went to a 15-minute draw with Brian Pillman. The Nasty Boys won a Chicago street fight with Max Payne and Cactus Jack. Dave called it one of the most brutal matches of all time and gave it 4.5 stars. 4.5 stars in 94.
With Max Payne in the match.
Yeah. Austin beat Great Muta via over the top rope DQ. Sting beat Rick Rude for the WCW International title, which I feel like we've talked about Rick Rude in this whole feud that he had with Sting. So go back and check that out in the archives.
And we'll be getting a little deeper as we go on through here. Just a little bit.
Bunkhouse Buck pinned Dustin Rhodes in what Dave called an excellent bloodbath, and he gave it 4 stars. Vader pinned the Boss. After the show, in a response to the legal letters WWF have been sending regarding Trailer wielding a nightstick and being called the Boss, directly infringing on their IP, WCW will be changing his name and look. Vigilante, the Guardian Angel, and Buford Justice are being kicked around. And
dude, if he was Buford Justice.
Oh my gosh. I almost wish it was Buford Justice. They brought in Smokey and the Bandit.
Buford Justice had to be one of his names when he went out to the bar, or like whenever he signed into a hotel.
Dude, he had to. I'm picturing that right now. Imagining Ray Trailer. I like that's the King of the Road match. Buford Justice and Smokey, whoever Smokey would be.
Yeah. That makes all the sense in the world. Actually, book it.
Yeah, give me the damn pen. Let us know in the comments if they should have booked that. But in the main event, Flair beat Steamboat via decision after going to a double pin with Ricky Steamboat in a match that went 32 minutes, and Dave gave it a 4.25 star rating. So there's a lot of 4+ star ratings on this show.
Yeah, I said it was excellent. And that was, again, man, the reader responses was huge. So that is certainly one that I'd love to go back and hit a rewatch on at some point in time.
Yeah.
All right. So other happenings right now, Brian Pillman and Steve Austin in the last week actually went to meet with Titan, tested the waters with All Japan. And after all of that, both will be re-signing. WCW has guaranteed money, a less grueling travel schedule, and there is the instability with the WWF's future with the upcoming steroid trial, and Uncle Eric upped the ante a little bit. So he did bring the boys back. WCW has also come to a limited time deal with Eastern Championship Wrestling, which opens the door for our boy Eddie. Again, plugging that for later on. Check that out. And Jesse Ventura also won his royalties lawsuit against Titan Sports and was awarded about $810,000. So huge win for Jesse the Body right here. Vince, I understand that you've been
collecting all sorts of monies from using my voice on WrestleManias 5 and 6, and I don't understand. Where's my money, honey? Ask the questions.
Thank you for Jesse for the run in there.
So we move forward. Next week, John, what you got?
Yes, this is the May 2nd Wrestling Observer newsletter. And we're going to kick it off here with Rick and Scott Steiner no-showed their booking and have reportedly quit WWF. They've been unhappy over pay for some time. They were used to the $300,000 that they were making in WCW, coupled with the $12,000 per week that they would get in Japan as backup. They're expected to have to sit out the rest of their contract, which expires in the middle of December. They were originally scheduled to win the tag titles at WrestleMania, but because of the heat they got for signing the Japan deal, weren't even put on the card. They're expected to be back in WCW once their deal expires. In news related to Bash at the Beach, Dave Sullivan blew out his knee, and so Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan will be the new tag team feud for the Nasty Boys.
Are you familiar at all with Dave Sullivan before seeing him on this show?
I saw him on the show and I was like, I've never seen that man before.
Well, he's the wrestling brother of Kevin Sullivan. And the storyline that they were doing at this point in time was that Dave was dyslexic. And instead of him not being able to like read properly, he would pronounce his name as Evid. So he was a dyslexic speaker.
Wow.
And the Nasty Boys would make fun of him for being a dyslexic nerd. And so he was sick of getting bullied. And so Cactus came to help him out and save the day.
So Cactus was babyface long before he ever became Mick Foley.
Yep. Yeah. Then Dave gets hurt and then Kevin steps in.
Okay, that makes more sense now. Yeah, I saw him outside and then I was like,
yeah.
Oh.
And then once they signed Hulk Hogan, Dave became the biggest Hulk fan ever. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Some quick business notes from April in WCW. Attendance is still down. They're down 5.3% year over year, 1,440 people per show. Estimated gate is actually up to $15,220 per show. And they have still not sold out a house show in 1994. So again, business is not good. And this company is absolutely losing money. And unlike the death of WCW era, where there's all sorts of conflicting reports between what the journalists say and then what, your Bischoffs and whatnot say, Eric Bischoff will admit time after time that Turner came to him and was like, please stop the bleeding here, which is why they were doing the Disney tapings and all those other things, because the wrestling business was really hurting Turner, but Ted was so in love with it that he didn't want to let it go. Interesting, right? So let's go, man. Take us on to the next week. What do we got?
All right, so we're at May 9th of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. It starts with, on May 1st, in 1994, several WCW talent wrestled on a New Japan show at the Fukuoka Dome in Japan. On the show, Rude beat Sting to regain the WCW International title, which was expected at the time, but suffered his career-ending back injury during the match. So this is the show that we talk about this on the Rick Rude show. Please go back and check that out. It is in the archives. We walk you through the Rick Rude life and career, and this is a huge part of that show. As of this week, Titan did not match the WCW offer for Hogan, and it is now imminent that Hulk signs with WCW. WWF took another legal hit after the Ventura lawsuit, losing a $26.7 million judgment on April 29th in the Chuck Austin case.
You familiar with the Chuck Austin case?
I am not. Please give me a little something about this.
Yes. So he is the one that was the job guy that took the rocker dropper wrong and was partially paralyzed.
Okay. All right.
Yes. So that lawsuit was stemming from that. Crazy too, because like Bruno Sammartino was brought in as a professional witness, and basically like the overarching thing was that this business comes with risks and you need to protect yourself. And he took the move wrong. and the jury sided with him, and he got $26.7 million, man. So there's a messy situation going on right now with Barry Windham. So Rob Parker, during the TV tapings at this time, which their taping schedule, they're taping a month in advance and then playing them later on. So he said during the tapings that he has a 6'7" blonde man named the Stable Stud that's going to challenge Ric Flair, obviously to insinuate that this was Hogan. It does end up being Barry Windham under a mask, though. So the man is masked, but it's Windham. And it's Windham to the point where, like, whenever they air the angle, people won't think that it's false advertising, right? Like, you can look and see, oh my gosh, that's Barry Windham. But the idea is to plant more Hogan seeds right now.
Okay.
So at this time, Windham told the company that he had a doctor's release to return. He blew his knee out the year before, but he wasn't able to provide it. So the company temporarily let him go to avoid legal liability. This is going to get much murkier soon, though. We'll get into it a little bit later. My man, Haku, has been brought in as Rob Parker's bodyguard. His name is Meng. And an angle was done where the boss was visited by two guardian angels. And brother, I know that you're thinking, tell me that there were robed and winged beings that came down from the heavens with halos that sat on his shoulders and said, visit us, Ray. Yeah, in reality, it was a couple of guys, starter jackets that said Guardian Angels on the back. They had red berets, and they were the ones that gave him the t-shirt that he wore during the show. And they asked him to join the Guardian Angels.
That's so WCW, man.
It is.
I have a comment about the fit later.
And the funny thing with this too is not only did WCW use the boss and give Boss Man literally a nightstick and everything else, like they just cut man off of his name, but whenever they brought in Nails, they literally called him like the Convict. And it was the same thing. And he wore like a black jumpsuit or something instead of an orange one. They're so good at not being good at anything. So we move forward 1 week, and during that week, Windham missed house shows that were scheduled against the newly named Guardian Angel because he still hasn't provided that medical release, and he was replaced by Paul Orndorff on the shows. There's been no replacement named in the event that he can't make Slamboree to main event against Ric Flair on 5/22. And there was a pre-taped angle where this 7-foot masked 300-pound blind man attacks Flair. And one would think that you would try to get a comparable body to maybe save face. And instead, they might just bail on it. Terry Funk is said to be the leader in the clubhouse if Windham can't make it. Which I think that would be one of those deals where people would just be so happy to see Flair Funk, they wouldn't care.
Right. That would be true, too.
So our Hogan news, John, you're our Hogan man throughout this now. Give it to me.
Titan officially informed WCW they will not be matching the Hogan offer. The working plan is for Hulk to make a surprise appearance at the June 23rd Clash of the Champions in Charleston, South Carolina, to lead into a July 17th pay-per-view match, which is Bash at the Beach. The tricky thing here is that the show could be right in the middle of the steroid trial. Hogan's deal is reported to have very few house show dates on it, as opposed to the 40 to 50 dates that were in initial discussions. Obviously, the top guys in the company won't be happy, as Hogan will be making mega money, get the title right away, and have a limited schedule. Hogan has a major risk reward, as the company has been losing money, with this possibly being their biggest losing year ever. But if Hulk can make an impact, he can possibly change attendance and gate numbers well after he's gone. If he flops, the company could be in further danger because of the amount of expenses they are taking on with signing him while already being in the red. It is officially reported that Rick Rude and Jerry Saggs are both injured and missed the show on May 9th in Fort Lauderdale. Rude is out with back and neck problems, and Saggs is injured with his shoulder.
Okay, so we are in the May 26th issue of the Observer newsletter, our Windham Saga update. So it has been reported now that Windham did get medical clearance to work. So it was will he, won't he, will he, won't he. In the week before, essentially, the pay-per-view, he's got his clearance. They said that Terry Funk was told to be ready to work 2 matches. Dustin Rhodes was even considered as being a replacement, which actually would have made sense because he is tall and big and blonde. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like. As soon as you said Dustin Rhodes, I was like, that fits the body mold.
Yep. The other title match for Slamboree was to be Vader versus Rick Rude, and that is now in limbo. So Rude has been butting heads with management, but was still given the title win in Japan. Rude then this shows after the Japan show with neck and back injuries, but he's had neck issues for a couple of years now. Rude's making $300,000+ per year. So he's going to be placed at the top of the card no matter what because of his salary, but his in-ring performance has been dipping of late. Dave says that it's almost certainly attributed to the neck injuries, and we go into that on the show as well, the Rick Rude show. Check that out. So the word here is that if Rude is unable to perform, the idea is to have the International Board of Governors say that because of the distraction by Lady Love, Sting retains. It ends up being that he won with an illegal maneuver or whatever. But if he's able to go and loses to Vader, it will most likely signal that he's done with the company, that they've had it out with each other, it's over. If he's able to go and wins, then it's assumed that everything's hashed out and worked out. He doesn't come to the show, spoiler alert. Because of Sag's injured shoulder, he's expected to appear at Slamboree to drop the belts, but Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan are now doing interviews at tapings as the tag champions. So Sags is hurt. Come on over. Let's lose these belts and then let's get them on Jack and Sullivan. And it is believed that Roma and Orndorff will quickly win the belts from them, starting a feud with the newly formed Stars and Stripes team of Marcus Alexander Bagwell and the Patriot. I love that tag team, dude. That tag team is excellent. So a quick recap of Slamboree 94. We're moving forward 1 week. This show looked like another awesome show. I do need to spend some time back in 94 WCW because I'm just getting all the nostalgia things clipped here as we go through. So this show was a 65.4% thumbs up and only 18.6% thumbs down by Observer readers. However, there's some stuff on here, man, that's going to make me want to go back. John, give us the highlights of Slamboree 94.
Yes, Steve Austin pinned Johnny B. Bad. Terry Funk and Tully Blanchard went to a double DQ. Larry Zbyszko pinned Steven Regal in a non-title match. Dustin Rhodes pinned Bunkhouse Buck in a bull rope match. Flair pinned Barry Windham. Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan win the WCW tag titles from the Nasty Boys. Dave said it was another incredible brawl with weapons galore. 4.5 star and a must see. I feel like I got to see this now. So
Yes. Dude, 2 4.5 star brawls, both with the Nasty Boys. And this one is Jack and Kevin Sullivan.
yeah,
The other was Jack and Max Payne. Obviously, Jack and the Nasty Boys make magic whenever they're allowed to just hit each other with all sorts of dangerous objects.
yes, my word. But in our main event, Sting pinned Vader for the vacant international title.
So backstage, Rude has apparently left the promotion. He was in Philly for the Slamboree show to fulfill the obligation of being there, but wouldn't be able to wrestle due to an injury that he sustained in Japan. Rude's been working hurt for some time, and there was skepticism around this injury because, check this out for timing, it came days after he allegedly stated that he wouldn't put Flair, Hogan, or Vader over.
Oh my gosh.
So there was an idea of the feud starting at Bash after the tag and then culminating at Starrcade rather than Halloween Havoc.
Okay.
They didn't go there, obviously, but Rick was supposed to do and that's Rick Rude, not Ric Flair. Rick Rude was supposed to do the job at the end of that match. The match would involve Rude, Flair, Hogan, and then there was things bandied around. Would it be Sting, Vader, depending on how they wanted to team the teams up?
Mm-hmm.
And with the idea being, if it was like Rude and Vader, it could have been Hogan and Flair, and both tag partners hate each other. Do you know what I mean? Like one of those kind of deals. Obviously, that didn't happen. Rude and Flair got into a serious argument at Slamboree backstage because Rude wanted to do an interview, and basically it buried Sting for not being DQ'd after Harley Race cost Rude the title, but then Rick was stripped after winning with illegal means. And Flair didn't like it. He was the booker, and he felt that because there's no future plans for Rude, and it would have taken away from the Sting and Vader match later on, that shouldn't be on the show. He gave Rick Rude his plan, and Rude didn't like it, so he walked out. So that was the end of Rick Rude in WCW. Should note, though, speaking of Flair being the booker, Kevin Sullivan has been added to the booking committee. So Flair, I don't know if he's still the lead guy, but now we're starting to spread around the duties a little bit. All right, man. What's our Hulk update as we get into June?
Yes, the Hulk update from the June 6th Wrestling Observer newsletter is that the current plan is for Hogan to make an appearance at the June 23rd Charleston Clash of the Champions, and the main event will be Flair and Sting in a unification match. The Bash card is set as the show went, with the one change being Sting versus Regal was originally booked. Dave reports that according to a WWF source, remember, WWF had to review the contract before declining to sign it, the Hogan deal expires December 31st, 1994, a 6-month deal with 3 clashes and 3 pay-per-views at $300,000 per show. Hulk will also receive 25% of any pay-per-view revenue increase based on the current level. He will also get 25% of the house for each of the house show that he works on, 65% of merchandising income as well. Meltzer says that for the group with Hogan's new deal to earn the same amount of money on the pay-per-view before Hulk came in, all 3 pay-per-views he works would need to average a 0.87 buy rate, and people in the industry don't believe that it's possible.
So, I mean, dude, you want to talk about a deal, $1994, that's $1.8 guaranteed $1 million.
Insane.
60, and then to couple that 65% of merchandise, I believe that it's 30 or 35% goes away right away to the companies that make it, the licensing fee, like, all that, the other administrative deals. So WCW at this time, from what I can understand, is losing a couple bucks on every bit of Hulk Hogan merchandise that they sell.
That's literally crazy.
Yeah. But again, that was how they got Vince to not sign him. The fear was if Vince signed him and then Hulk, if Vince matched it,
yeah,
it was going to be 3 pay-per-views, 3 blah, blah, blah. If Hulk never worked any of those shows, they would have never had to pay him a dime.
Yeah.
But if he wanted to.
But if he wanted to.
And if he did, that, you know what I'm saying? So then that was why they didn't do it, obviously. So we're in the May WCW business. Just a few highlights here. We are post-Hogan signing news. So year over year, attendance is now up 64%. Now, I don't know how, but somehow in May of 1993, their estimated average attendance was 490 people per show.
That's barely any people there.
Correct. And I don't even know if that's a typo in the Observer, man. It very well could have been. So, but they're up year over year there. Their estimated average gate is up huge. And this is what makes me think maybe it wasn't a typo. They went from $4,660 per show in May of 93 up to $13,300 in May of 94. Still haven't sold out a show. But again, we're getting some Hulk buzz here. And not only that, these shows seem to be really good, man. Like what they're putting out there seems like it's getting people to buy tickets to come into the doors.
Yeah, that's exactly the way that I was thinking about it too. Like, these shows are good. Like, I have watched some of these before, and like, they're not bad shows.
Yep. All right, man. So we are now in mid-June. Go ahead and take us to the next stage in our Hulk saga.
The June 11th Saturday night show was a live press conference from Orlando with Hogan signing his contract. The show had Hogan come out to a literal ticker tape parade with Jimmy Hart running around, and then Hogan giving a speech about coming to WCW. WCW officials are expecting a 1.0 buy rate, which would basically double what they've been doing lately. And if you want to see more info what this looks like, go to the shorts on the channel, because I posted the ticker tape parade in the shorts.
And it's such a great little video, man. I'm so glad that you did, because that was literally what I was watching going, I was, I might have been making my own confetti in the living room. Do you know what I'm saying? Just waving at him through the screen. Other news here, TV tapings on May 31st. A young fella, Jean-Paul Levesque, was announced as a newcomer from France, making his WCW debut.
I actually have something for that. Jean-Paul Levesque's first debut on WCW was our actual recording date, which, peeling the curtain back here, was July 16th of 1994. Check the shorts.
So that was his TV debut, huh? Yep. He wrestled Larry Zbyszko in a match that ended in a double DQ. And my other bit of news here is the Guerrero brothers. Dave's not sure which two, but I might have an idea, are coming to the U.S. to feud with Terry Funk and Buckhouse Buck in August as they're running house shows in Texas. And folks, if you don't know, Terry loved him some Eddie, and check out the bonus show to hear about that.
Yes.
So we move on to the Clash of the Champions, man. Essentially the go home show for Bash at the Beach as far as major, especially because this was a cable show, a major show to set up all the angles and do everything. This show received a 47.7% thumbs up, a 37.5% thumbs down, and a 14.7% thumbs in the middle. John, the rundown, please.
Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan beat the Nasty Boys. As a much more toned down TV match, this was rated 1 3/4 star as opposed to the 4+ star matches that they had been getting over the last two shows. The Guardian Angel pinned Tex Slazenger in a squash match. Hogan and Jimmy Hart arrive. As they each get out of the car, the boos start to rain from the crowd.
They're in South Carolina, baby. They're Flair country.
Yep. Regal beat Larry Zbyszko to regain the TV title. Arn Anderson did his interview where he said that he would team with Dustin. Steve Austin retained the U.S. title after getting DQ'd against Johnny B. Bad. And Hogan came out for the interview, and this is where the boos just started pouring all over the poor Hulkster here. But in the main event, Flair pinned Sting to unify the title. Sherry came to the ring with Sting face paint. She was last in WWF as a babyface, and at the end, she helped Flair to victory, and the two were confronted by Hogan, who came out at the end to save the day.
Yeah, man, I remember there's not every single bit of this, but I remember this storyline arc with Flair and Hogan really like one of those things where like once I saw or once I heard, all the memories came flooding back. And her coming out in that Stinger face paint because she left Shawn in WWF and she was with Marty and then she was with, Tatanka and all that other stuff that was going on. So
right.
She was baby facing on her way out. And so for her to come in, there was actual who's she with whenever she was, basically, will it be Stinger Flair? She comes out with the Stinger face paint on and we think that we got ourselves a good girl. And then she goes right back to dastardly Sherry at the end. So pretty sweet turn here.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet.
All right, man. So before the Bash news, sort of in between the Clash and the Bash, after the heavy blood and the heavy violence in the Cactus Jack and Dustin Rhodes Bunkhouse Buck matches, there has been an edict from on high that these matches will no longer be tolerated, especially the blood.
What geared towards.
Right. And this edict is what ends up getting Dustin fired later on. In the King of the Road match, this is why I believe that Cactus Jack and Nasty Boys match went from 4+ to a 1 3/4. And also probably a huge reason why the pay-per-view match was what it was. And man, I got things to say about that one. We'll get to that later though.
Yep.
So the last thing before we get into the main event here, Hogan testified on July 14th, 1994. So 3 days before the show. It has been covered in plenty of other platforms, but I was actually able to skim through the transcript of the whole testimony from an Angel Fire page that was literally probably from 1997.
Wow. That is a great find. We used Angel Fire here earlier on the pod.
Yes.
A couple weeks ago.
Yes. It was so funny because I was just trying to do a little bit of digging into this and I found an Angel Fire page and it literally starts with Hulk and then going through. So It's wild, man. Basically, this is 3 days before he's about to be the most over guy in Orlando, right? Like this crowd is nuclear for him. And now he's on the stand in a federal trial, admitting steroid use, what he took, for how long. Basically, he says that I've been on for 14 years, how easy it was for him to get them. So he has a prescription pad that's pre-filled out that he would take on the road with him from Zahorian that basically gave him an out if he ever got pulled over or stopped and had gear on him at the time. So he could be like, oh, here's my script. And it was a full prescription pad of it. Yes. Yes, and apparently like people in the courtroom were appalled at the medical ethics violation that was going on there. The media reports were really brutal along with this too. So even though it was Vince that was on trial basically with Titan Sports, when Hogan testified, all of the major media basically made it seem like it was Hulk that was on trial, right? Like, the way that they basically put him through the ringer. At one point, there was a reporter that was there, and the reporter rolled out a 22-inch long piece of paper towel and then put it into a circle and basically was trolling Hogan because the attorney was questioning him about his 22-inch pythons and were those from steroids. And he says yes. And then the news reporter's like, a much thinner Hulk Hogan comes in, and they're like, this is what 22 inches looks like, and this is what Hulk looks like today, basically to be like, yeah, this fella's not on the gear anymore. So they gave it to him pretty good here. But the best thing for me is that I was not even 10 years old, and I had no idea what news was. So I was just thinking, man, Hulk looks like he's been training with George Foreman.
Yeah.
He looks so good. I do need to note, though, that before Hogan, Warrior also testified. And the Warrior was asked, was Hershey, PA known for any one specific person? And he said, Dr. Zahorian. So Zahorian was operating out of Chocolate Town.
All right, Mongoose, we are here at the main event. We are going to talk about Bash at the Beach finally. There's been a long road. There's been a lot of information that we've thrown at you here, all of this Hulk talk, and then we end it with a big hammer slam with that steroid trial stuff that we've got to cover at some point here on the show, and I'm sure that we will. Will you give us the rundown of Bash at the Beach?
This show took place July 17th, 1994, and was held at the Orlando Arena in Orlando, Florida. About 14,000 people attended, with 9,111 people paying approximately $140,000, which was the largest crowd and gate since Flair and Funk in 1989. So to go back to that business we talked about before, we're picking up here. This show got a 46.7% thumbs up, 28.9% thumbs down, and 24.4% thumbs in the middle. The best match was 107 votes for Flair Hogan, 102 votes for Steamboat and Austin. So basically a tie there. Mm-hmm. And the overwhelming worst match was Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan versus Paul Roma and Paul Orndorff. Dave Meltzer says, make no mistake about it, the Bash at the Beach was a huge success. I don't think it was close to the best WCW pay-per-view of late, but it accomplished what it needed to. And as far as the first show went, the Hulk signing was a success. It drew an estimated 1.02 buy rate, which is the biggest for a WCW show since 1991. And it doubled the previous show, Slamboree. Meltzer also reported that the translation to that buy rate would mean about 230,000 homes and a pay-per-view gross of $2.58 million.
So that's a success. They met their threshold, because I remember that we talked about the WCW higher ups. They were expecting a 1.0 and they went 1.02. So they exceeded expectations.
In the spirit of college football 25 just dropping. Not so fast, my friend. So although and here's the thing, man, it is a big deal that they did cross that 1.0 threshold. But to hear those kind of numbers, especially the 2.58 million,
yeah,
although the gate and the gross and the buys, all that stuff's awesome, the Hulk factor cuts in here. So Meltzer reported that the break-even mark for a pay-per-view at that time is about $800,000. So if you take 800,000 minus the 2.58, you're at about, your, what would that be? Your 1.4-ish million, something like that, right? Hulk's cut from the show would be around $680,000. And with the money that was also spent on advertising, which Hogan did the work for this, man. He was flying all over the place. The profit only looks to be about $550,000. The number is good because Slamboree would have done about $400,000 in profits, but because it wasn't an insane number, that Hogan still needs to be a draw in the next two shows to make the signing worth it. So it was good, but it wasn't like astronomical, but it exceeded a lot of people's expectations in that way. Yep. So the big question mark is going to be, will the novelty wear off the way that it did with the WWF the year before? Because King of the Ring 93 lost half of its pay-per-view audience compared to Mania that year.
That's WrestleMania, so they're always going to have higher buys than just other shows.
This is correct, but it was only a second match back after being gone for over a year. And this is where Meltzer is basically like, I don't know yet if this is going to be a thing, because the Turner guys are giving all kinds of high fives, obviously, probably sitting in the back with Hulk and Duggan and Pillman and Brian Blair, just drinking all the bubbly. But there still needs to be a little bit of pause, I would think, because Dave says the cutoff line for success for the next two shows is going to be 0.85 buy rates.
You got to keep the momentum going. So
you do. Did you find the buy rates for those, John?
Yeah, according to WrestleNomics, the buy rate for Fall Brawl, which was the next show, was a 0.53. This show did not have Hogan on it. Halloween Havoc 94 drew a 0.97, and Starrcade 94 did a 0.60.
So that 0.97, man. But that ends up being the Flair Hogan Cage retirement match, which is going to be why that was such a big deal. But it looks like it worked, right?
Right.
So another win for WCW here, though, going back to contemporaneous times with the July 94, is that King of the Ring 94 only did a 0.85 buy rate. So this was the first time WCW ever drew a bigger buy rate than a WWF show in the same time frame. Mm-hmm. So that was another W for WCW here.
Yeah.
So with all of that, John, take us into the show, man.
Yes, we start with this national anthem. Darren Norwood is giving us a national anthem, and I was hooked.
I wrote Darren Norwood wearing the shirt of the century. It was such an incredible shirt, man. That starchy button up with the flag all over it.
Oh, sign me up, man. I love the 90s, man. Whew. But they start by showing footage of what happened to Sting and why he's injured. Sting has the Scorpion Deathlock on Flair with Hogan on the outside. There was a fan that ran in and gouged Sting's eyes. Hogan hits the atomic drop on that person, but it's revealed as Sherry. So Flair hit Hogan from behind, and Mr. T ran in for the save on Hogan.
So I remember this Sting angle like it was yesterday. So I was losing my child skull in my grandmother's living room when Sting got attacked. And Sherry's just the greatest, man. She is. What a worker.
Yes.
To come in there and just sell it so masculine and sell. Like, she's just that slow reveal of her peeling the mustache off and stuff. She's the best, dude. She's the best.
She is. Tony and Mean Gene tell us that Johnny B. Bad is stepping in for Sting against Steven Ringle for the TV title match. Johnny B. Bad struts that ass to the ring in his glitter sprinkled everywhere. And then they show they show Chris Lemon sitting in the front row, who was Hulk's co-star on Thunder in Paradise. He's got confetti covered all over him. Like, there is so much confetti. Why is there so much confetti?
Dude, them needing to wrestle and all of that was hilarious. And even funnier is they never cleaned it up.
No.
So there's just confetti there for the rest of the show. Tony actually literally even says, there's glitter everywhere.
That being said, I want to be Johnny B. Bad.
Oh, yes. and the only, dude, you got it. All you need to do is you just use 1D instead of 2.
That is true.
Think about it. So, dude, before you move on, Regal's facials are so all-time great. Just him, Regal's face, just
Yes,
hating them, hating the audience, hating the glitter. He's so good.
the way that he like has his shoulders always like shrugged and he's just got that nasty look on his face. He's so good. He's so underrated.
Yes, sir.
But the ref absolutely killed the finish to this match. They had a great spot and then the count sucked. They totally screwed the finish on this.
So I literally wrote that I thought the finish sucked in execution. So Johnny B. Bad hits the left. They go outside, come back in, and then Johnny B. Bad gets the near fall. This referee booting Sir Williams Kane whenever he was trying to help Regal was awesome. And then the high stack comes from Regal, but B. Bad wouldn't let go while Regal was trying to counter it, and it made it look awkward.
Yeah.
And then the referee was in the way, and it was a good idea, but God, it looked so bad.
I know, like the ref literally had an amazing spot. You're so correct. That spot was great. And then they just like he was like, I have so many takes about the refs on these shows that we're going to get to, but this was the start of a bad night for the referees.
Yeah. Meltzer said that Sting was pulled for a worked injury because they wanted to give Regal a clean win at a show when Inoki was there, as Inoki and Regal will be booked for the next Clash. This was a favor to Hulk to have Inoki's opponent go over rather than take the L here so that he looked weak going into the Inoki match. And Dave said it was a good opener, 2.5 stars.
We go back to ringside where Bobby Heenan says he's leaving commentary to go check on something. But what's really funny is that we have a fan that is hanging out behind them that is just absolutely incredible. That guy, shout out to him because he was yelling the entire show. He did not stop until that show ended.
Yeah, I wrote Hulk Hogan is behind Tony and Heenan.
That's so great.
And they showed that dude not only every shot of the commentators, but they went to him a couple of times whenever Hulkster was coming out. I thought that was funny.
Yep. Mean Gene is in the ring with Antonio Inoki receiving an award, but it is interrupted by a confetti-covered Steven Regal saying, how can this guy from overseas be recognized whenever Lord Steven is appointed by the House of Lords, and says that he's far superior than Inoki. Regal then powders out after a dust-up, and we are blessed with Jesse Ventura, who couldn't give a shit less about being there.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because the Observer literally said that Jesse was complaining to anyone with ears backstage about his treatment. So basically he said that ratings have been dropping continuously since he didn't replace them, and that no one in the company gave him any heads up on what he'd be doing on the pay-per-view. And Meltzer's literal quote was, quote, when Ventura came out there during the second match, he seemed to not turn off his bad mood even when the camera was on. By the way, Ventura's decided not to run for U.S. Senate, end quote. But as for Inoki, Dave Meltzer wrote the Inoki deal was a favor to Hogan because Inoki gave Hulk his first big break in 1980 before he came to the U.S. And so now that Hulk got this big money deal with a little bit of sway, he said, hey, Antonio, come on back over, brother.
All right. Well, I mean, that's good that they had a good relationship like that, especially like those two giants, like in so that's really cool. So our next match is Vader versus Guardian Angel. And I literally wrote, man, if Guardian Angel only knew what was coming for him 5 years later at WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah, brother. So first thing I got to say is Vader's music slams.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Yeah.
And then once I heard, because I watched the show before I went and did any of the, the digging.
Uh-huh.
I heard Cobb County, Georgia, and my jaw dropped, dude.
They said Cobb County, Georgia, and I was like, the Boss Man's coming out? And then they're like, the Guardian Angel. And then he dude in t-shirt and combat boots.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So I wrote here about this match that there is just so much man meat in this ring, but I'm just dying at what Boss Man's wearing because it's just so ridiculous.
Yeah. I have Angel with some Masonic imagery sprinkled on that shirt because that was there. But dude, it is literally a t-shirt from a lodge with slacks.
Yeah. What is it?
But you know what though? You know what it was? it was an ass kicking outfit because he came out there to throw fire.
He did. Yeah. They were out there.
I mean, they worked so stiff.
They were stiff in that match. I absolutely agree. But I popped to the moon because the cameraman pans to Hank Aaron, Antonio Inoki, and WCW president Bill Shaw. They're all sitting together, and one of these things is not like the other. And I'll let you guess who that is because I don't really have to tell you. But Vader whistling to the crowd, like that was a weird one. Like whistling.
John, he whistled right after they got done trading literally live rounds at one another.
Yeah.
They are just literally teeing each other off, potatoes to the face, get done, and then Vader just
yeah. He's just out there whistling.
Whistling like he's calling his pooch, man.
Yeah, like where did this whistle come from?
I don't know, but I wish that it was in every Vader match.
I noticed that he was doing it in the entrance, and I was like, is he like trying to like get the crowd noise up for himself? Like, so that whenever he watches this back, there's a little bit more crowd noise, but it's just him making it. Like,
it's a heady play.
It is a heady play. But the Vader moonsault is so impressive, and I'm so jealous. Harley Race hands Vader the nightstick, but Boss Man cuts him off and takes the nightstick from Vader. The ref turns and sees the stick in Boss Man's hands and disqualifies him, and Vader is announced as your winner.
The other notes that I have was that Race running up to the top rope just to take the Flair bump off of the top was glorious. He didn't need to scale the post.
No.
And he did it just to take that bump, and God, I loved it. And then the other thing that I wrote at the end was, Jesus, another terrible finish.
Yep.
Because that was just as bad, man. So Dave Meltzer said, quote, it wasn't up to Vader's usual standards, but the work was pretty stiff. Terrible finish. So literally, he wrote that made me feel good that I was on par there. They didn't want to pin Angel because it was his first match with the new gimmick. And obviously, after all the jobs Vader's done recently, they didn't want to beat him again. But it makes Vader, who's a top attraction, look weak when he can't even win the second match on the card. And it made no sense since he was scheduled to work in the top in a triangle match at the next pay-per-view, 2.5 stars. And after this match, they get into the radio show Morning Zoo match.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember this from being 9 or however old I was whenever I saw this. What a mess. I remembered it then thinking, this is terrible. But now, in my late 30s, I was excited to hear Jesse drop a Lois reference while they were doing the voiceover of this show. So him sitting there with Tony, he dropped a Lois reference, Tony popped, and I laughed. It was the only good thing about that segment.
Yeah, that segment was really bad. But our next match is Dustin Rhodes and Arn Anderson versus Terry Funk and Buckhouse Buck. Arn takes things slow, but Dustin, he comes in like a house of fire here. I don't know if it's just like luck or skill, but Dustin doing that crossbody and missing, but sliding under the rope to the floor and not hitting the steps at all. Like, how do you do that? Like, if I would have done that, that would have been the Sean spot for me. I would have been Rick Rude.
Yep. Or at least got a hip pointer or something. You know what I mean?
Something out of it. But we get more confetti. Funk flopping around to try to tag out there like a fish. That was incredible. The finish is Dustin tagging out, but Arn grabbing his partner, giving him the DDT and pulling Funk over Dustin for the pin. And they all beat down Dustin in the post match. I don't know who the ref here is again, but they're just like, they're so close. They're literally making the count like on top of the person. Like, back off. Like, this is the whole thing with every single ref in the show. They're up in these guys' assholes the whole time. Like, back off. They're in
and still miss and they still miss all kind of dastardly tactics and things like that.
They're literally in there. They're inches away looking at it, and they don't even make the call there. It drove me nuts.
The one thing that I wrote here was Dustin making his comeback while Arn was shadow boxing on the apron. I thought was freaking wonderful. Like Arn just standing there and just throwing rounds. Oh, dude, I loved it so much. Dave said about this one, Rhodes worked all but the first 30 seconds of the match and did a great job getting heat and fighting his way out of trouble. He also said the cameras were somewhere else whenever Dustin made the tag to Arn, which was the big turn. So good job, WCW production. 3 stars.
We get Hank Aaron ringside with Tony and Bobby Heenan. And once he walks off, dude, Heenan sent me to the moon with this. He said, hey, he's a so-so hitter.
Mm-hmm. Heenan was great on this show.
He was so good. We also get a Ric Flair backstage segment with Mean Gene too.
And dude, he's outrageous here. He goes, dignitaries from all over the world. And then he names Inoki, Hammer and Hank, and Shaq. So, I loved it. I thought that was awesome. But he was on one here.
Yes. And so our next match, this is Stunning Steve Austin versus Ricky Steamboat. And I was hype because I did not know anything about this show until I turned it on, other than obviously Hogan and Flair. But whenever I saw Austin and Ricky Steamboat coming out, I knew it was time.
Dude, how about those Dragon Slayer tights?
Yes. Those were one of the first things I noticed as soon as they got in the ring.
Yep. Excellent work there.
Yes. But this is elite heel work by Austin. But like, my only criticism of this match is, at what point do you just give up on the pinning? They tried to pin each other 12 times in a row. Like, Austin, like what are we doing? Like, that sort of drive me nuts.
I literally wrote, dude, this poor ref is going to need acupuncture and kineso tape on his arm after all of these 2 counts that Austin made him count, because it was like 5 straight minutes. He's probably getting cupped. Going back there, getting cupping. He has cup circles on his back now.
But they got me back whenever Austin took Ricky's hand and was waving it to the crowd with it. Dude, I love that. The double reverse tombstone was an incredible spot that really got the crowd up here. Austin pushed the ref into the top rope move that Steamboat was doing. The ref wanted to disqualify Austin, but Ricky convinced him from doing that. So he did not disqualify Austin. Ricky immediately jumped onto Austin with a flurry of punches. They got up. Ricky hits the ropes with a crossbody to pin, but it was rolled through by Austin, and he gets his feet on the ropes for the pin to win the match. They, again, got sloppy because the ref was literally in the way. The refs, again, screwed the finish.
I do want to note that if you watch this match alone by itself, which most of that crowd did because they were there for Hulk, you don't understand why Ricky kept asking, please don't end it. And when you get the context that we just went through here, of which helped me to hear Austin just won 3 matches or whatever in the last 2 months via DQ, because he keeps just getting DQ'd to retain the title. Ricky saying, no, don't do it. And the ref finally saying, okay, I won't.
Yeah.
Is a great spot. The shitty thing is that Ricky still loses. But I wrote here, good on Shivani for the Hollywood Blondes callback whenever Austin dropped down with his injured knee. Like, that was a famous Hollywood Blonde spot where they fall down and hold the knee, and then, it's not really hurt. Austin calling for timeout outside, that gets me every time. It's such a great heel move. When Austin then stopped selling the knee and just started stomping a mud hole in Ricky, Bobby Heenan goes, that must be a trick knee. And I exploded. Dude, Ricky doing the doozy sell out of the ring and then rolling down the steps was so good. But like, Ricky is the most babyface ever. And I felt like that was the most heel sell of a move ever.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't feel like that was very babyfacey to like take this like slow, awkward looking roll down the steps. Like, if Austin would have taken that, I thought it would have been so much better of a spot. You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
Well, 2 other things I should say. Bobby said is that Shivani says, and that's the brain, after Bobby said something smart or whatever. And Bobby goes, and that's the other part of the anatomy. And you can hear Tony popping right there because he just got called a dick. And I loved it, dude. I thought that was hilarious. Also, I did write in the middle of it that this feels like it's dragging a little. The crowd seems very much here for Hogan and not here for working over the arm and having a long match. Right. But as you said, that tombstone spot was huge. The near falls got him back. And when they were doing that tombstone spot, Heenan goes, "It's like a ride at the fair." And oh man, I loved it. And I do want to say that after all of this, Austin wins with his feet on the ropes, and we are 0 for good finishes so far.
Yeah. That's the only problem with the show. We can't get a good finish.
Yep. Dave said it started slow, but it turned into a super match. Steamboat was the best performer on the card. The crowd got into it in spots, but it didn't get the heat that it should have because so much of the crowd was either here papered and brought in to cheer for Hogan or paid just to see Hogan. 3 3/4 stars.
Backstage, Mean Gene goes to Arn Anderson's locker room for answers about his actions earlier in the night. Arn explains that he is now fighting for himself, and Dustin made his mistake by looking for Arn for help.
Dude, we are backstage with the Funks, the Bunk, Arn, and women, and Mang.
Yeah.
What a scene.
It is a scene.
So, dude, Arn looking only as Arn can with his big rectangle glasses and his t-shirt, emerges from a couch full of women and gets up and then just starts talking about getting stabbed by scissors in Europe by Sid Vicious. Whenever he's like, "Oh, I was in a hospital bed in Europe." I'm like, "Oh yeah, you got stabbed in the leg by a crazy person."
Right.
Him getting the champagne rib mid promo, dude, he looked livid.
Yeah, he was
like he
so bad.
No, and he wasn't ready for it. And because he had to turn around and see the probably 56-year-old funker behind him, what are you going to do, right?
Right. So our next match is the World Tag Team title match. It is Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan versus Pretty Wonderful. And man, I was really disappointed because the crowd was DEAD dead. Orndorff's little dance, though, before that knee drop, man, I get it, Uncle Jamie. I get it why Mr. Wonderful is your favorite after something like that, because that was great. But in the finish, we see Roma holding Cactus's legs down so he couldn't kick out from the outside. Your new tag team champions are crowned.
I got here that, man, brother Dave is so ready for Hulk tonight. And his brother is about 10 months away from taking Hogan to another dimension and giving him a series of cartoon labors to conquer.
It's so true.
So Orndorff looks great, but dude, at this point in time, I can't help but notice that little arm, the strong hand arm.
Yeah, I noticed it instantly.
Yeah. Because he looks great, but that atrophy is in full effect here. They did a spot where Mick covered the corner to block the corner so that Sullivan didn't get thrown into it. And then Roma tried to do the same thing on the opposite corner. And then someone kicked him in the gut. And dude, it was like he got kicked into orbit. And I thought that was excellent. I also have here that Cactus, for the first and maybe only time in his life, thought better of taking a dive to the floor off of the apron. I thought that was interesting. And then I also just noted that, like, Sullivan just being a babyface is so strange. I did love it whenever he was given the double head banger bashers into the turnbuckle. But I'm watching the Taskmaster and Mankind work a conventional tag match. Like, what's happening here? Just quick tags, working holds. And so, of course, the crowd's doing the wave because they didn't like it either.
Yeah. So, it was so strange. It just, I don't know what they were doing here.
And dude, it felt like it would never end. Dude, Sullivan felt like the babyface in peril for over an hour.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't end. And then hot tag, Jack's just doing clotheslines and body slams like it's 1987, and he's teaming with Tito Santana. But and the finish was bad. Oh, dude, I just hated it all. I hated every second of this. Dave said that although Orndorff was great at working the crowd, these guys are flat when it comes to being tag champs. The match wasn't good, and unless you knew what was coming going into the show with the violence ban, meaning that the matches the Cactus Jack has had on previous pay-per-views are now not going to happen, you'd have been terribly disappointed. Well, I was terribly disappointed because I did not know of the violence ban.
Right.
It wasn't until the last minute that Cactus was even cleared to work. He was still in rough shape from a back injury suffered in his match with Sabu. WCW officials are also exceedingly upset about Cactus spitting on the belt and throwing it into the ground during an ECW interview. Brian Pillman was actually flown in to sub for him, but instead just made a cameo appearance at the Hulk Hogan victory party.
I saw
the match was dull. The crowd was doing the wave, and Dave says it went on forever. 1/2 star.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the ECW stuff, because in between here, Cactus goes to ECW for a little bit of a run for his match with Sabu, and he does get himself injured in that match, and that's why. And he's during a interview, he spit on his tag title, and so like he did have heat backstage for it. I did know that.
Yep.
But we are here at the main event. It is Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. We get Michael Buffer for the ring announcements. We get President Nick Bockwinkel alongside Shaquille O'Neal to present the title to the winner of the match.
Dude, not only Shaq, but Shaq in an all-sport shirt.
Dude, yes, weird.
All sport. Rest in power. So I just thought to myself also, whenever he came out, does Shaq have sideburns?
Yes.
And then Heenan literally goes, are those paste-on sideburns? But dude, the Hulk Hogan song, like, how do you can't top Real American, but dude, that WCW, that American made song is so good. And the reaction was incredible. And I wrote that Hogan looks like he transferred about 40 pounds of bulk from himself to Mr. T.
Yes. He literally transferred off of himself to T.
Yep. I was trying to find the Michael Buffer performance fee. It is in The Death of WCW, and I just didn't have a chance to go through the book. The number is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per appearance for Michael Buffer. And my God, man, it ain't it. But they spent it. Michael Buffer announced Hulk Hogan as being 6'7", and then Shaq standing next to him and looks about 8 inches taller, so that I thought that was hilarious. And Buffer also said that Hogan's coming off of the 3-year layoff. And I just told a story about me writing a letter to Jack Tunney in June of 1993. Yeah. And then he was literally working in Japan in the middle, but whatever. But the last thing I wrote was Shaq holding this belt up. They could have a dang ladder match, dude.
They could have.
With Shaq just holding the belt up.
To your credit, there's talking about Shaq, is that they're pulling out all the stops here, and the crowd was with them, man. They really helped out this match, especially after that tag match. The stare down, the styling and profiling, Hulk then mocking the styling and profiling. This was awesome. And I feel like this is the blueprint for the WrestleMania 18 match with Rock and Hogan.
I literally, in my notes, as I'm sitting there with the laptop on me while I'm watching this, wrote 4 minutes in, very Hulk and Rock Mania 18. So we're on the same wavelength here.
That's right wave.
Yep. And I said, not very much. And a mega reaction every time they do half of anything.
So Flair is powdering behind Sherry, and that was excellent. Oh, that was so good. He did this multiple times. Jimmy Hart just yelling with the megaphone as Hulk does moves, like, great job, Hulk. Like, they were so good. But Randy Anderson leaping over them to make the count, like, I can't take it with these refs anymore. But after the Hulkster hulked up out of the side headlock, he gave Flair a back suplex on the outside. They got back into the ring. Hogan missed the leg drop. Flair went for multiple figure fours, but they were all countered. Flair suplexed Hogan, and Hogan.
Dude, that was incredible.
Yes,
that was an incredible spot. Him vertical suplexing him, holding him in the air. And that was incredible.
I thought that was too. I wasn't expecting Flair to hold him up that long.
Yes.
But Hogan gave Flair the boot, and then Sherry pulled the ref out before they could get to the count of 3. Flair hit Hogan's legs, and Sherry then climbed to the top and gave Hogan a frog splash from the top. Nick Patrick ran in as the new ref, and Flair hooked in the figure 4. Hogan broke the hold with the rope, though. Sherry choked Hogan with pantyhose. Of all things, the pantyhose is the dastardly weapon here.
You got to be resourceful, man. Dance with who brought you.
Sherry tried another top rope splash, but she missed this time. Hogan threw Flair off the top rope for the Flair bump, but Flair and Sherry both got taken out by clotheslines. Hogan hooked in his own figure four on Flair, which that I was not expecting that.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Sherry jumped back onto the apron, but she was grabbed by Mr. T. Flair hit Hogan with brass knuckles, but then Hogan was able to kick out at 2. Hogan hulks up, drops the leg, wins the belt. This was absolutely amazing, and the crowd was going banana.
Yeah, they were going wild, man. So I have here Jimmy Hart, Hero of Men, saved a chair shot on the outside that Sherry tried to give Hulk, and it was Michael Buffer's chair.
Yeah.
That was the funniest part about it, is that I'm thinking, why is Sherry about to hit him with this beautifully decorated upholstered chair? And then she goes and we see Buffer in the background just all begrudgingly opening it back up to sit down in it. I said that Sherry is the OG watch for the shoe, or Mariah May just using it as a weapon. I absolutely loved it. When Randy Anderson simply got pulled out of the ring and was then incapacitated, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, Sherry pulled his leg and he was just on the floor for 25 minutes.
Dead.
And then once that happened, I literally wrote, oh God, it's Nick Patrick. There was a Road Warrior pop for Sherry missing that splash, dude. I'm glad that you noted that because it was so good. And then Hulk hit Sherry.
Yeah.
Like, only the Hulkster can clock a woman, strut, and then get cheered. And, oh, dude, Hogan's hair at the end of this, too, it just looked like the wettest spaghetti hanging off of his hair or hanging off of his head. Like, I love sweat-soaked Hulk hair, and that crowd was insane. You absolutely right, man. This was excellent. It was so fun to watch. I loved it.
But there is a huge celebration in the ring, and they actually have plenty of time to go backstage and interview Hogan. He says Hulkamania is stronger than ever, and this felt like a really big deal, and they actually did a really good job, I felt.
Yeah, Dave said that it was the first clean pinfall ever in a singles match between the two of them. In 1992, Hogan did pin Flair with a leg drop in several tag team matches, but all of their singles matches were either DQs or countouts. Hogan got an even bigger pop than Shaquille O'Neal. The 3 bad points: no George Foreman, Mr. T was there, and Michael Buffer was there. So Dave is not a fan. The announcers tried to get over an insulting storyline to any fan that even has a semblance of a memory that it was Hogan's first match in 3 years, and it was the first time Flair and Hogan ever wrestled. Flair was psyched up for the match, even though from a storyline standpoint, it was no different than every other Hogan Saturday Night's Main Event match, except it was longer. Hogan overpowers heel. Manager distracts Hogan. Heel gets advantage. Instead of happening twice, it happened 4 times, but the people were there to see the Hogan show, and Flair gave it to them. 3 1/4 star, which, for that being a Hogan match up and down, ain't going to rate it any higher, man. I thought that was great.
Yes. So for the plans after the pay-per-view, Dave wrote that the next major WCW show would be Clash of the Champions in late August from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The company wanted to move that show and Halloween Havoc, which are Hogan's next 2 shows, as far away from the Southeast as possible because of the nightmare reaction Hogan got in Charleston, South Carolina. Goose, what is the booking direction for the shows, though?
The Clash show will be headlined by Dusty and Dustin versus Bunkhouse Buck and Terry Funk, following the angle on the pay-per-view, which makes sense there. And then Pretty Wonderful versus the Nasty Boys, and Austin and Steamboat, and Regal versus Inoki.
And that Clash show was briefly covered in the Davey Boy segment of our No Mercy show a few weeks ago. So go check that out in the archives. And we are getting very close to that Hacksaw Squash on Austin match that happens at Fall Brawl.
Yes, sir. And speaking of Fall Brawl, the idea here is that War Games with Dusty, Dustin, and the Nasty Boys versus Funk, Buck, Meng, and Arn Anderson, and then a triple threat with Flair, Sting, and Vader for like number 1 contendership or whatever. But spoiler alert, Flair gets replaced with the Guardian Angel. And so I feel like we need to watch Fall Brawl 94. So Dave said with the strong buy rate, expect Hogan's influence to increase. The main example was the debut of Duggan. Jimmy Hart is also trying to get Honky Tonk Man in WCW. The next pay-per-view is laid out to be Hulk and Flair in a steel cage match for the title with Mr. T as the referee and an appearance by Muhammad Ali. Meltzer said, and by the next pay-per-view, that would be Halloween Havoc, not Fall Brawl, for full disclosure. Hogan's not booked for Fall Brawl. So Meltzer said that it hasn't been made public that Flair will retire if he loses the match, but his feeling was that Flair wins a clash with all the eyeballs on free TV due to all kinds of interference, and then get all those people to see it, buy the show to watch Hogan get the comeuppance in the cage. He does write that this is all speculation at that point. He also says that Flair's friends have said that he believes that he might retire at the end of the year to concentrate on booking and his gym business. Again, this is 1994.
Yeah, okay.
Also, there is serious speculation that when Sting's contract expires around January, that he will try to pursue acting. If this happens, Dave says he may not be there for Hogan to pass the torch to, which appears to be the current plan.
Hogan passing the torch to Sting? Like, that would have been huge.
Well, John, this in a short-term idea was supposed to be what Hulk didn't do with Brett in 1993.
Oh, yeah.
So Hulk is on a run and then puts Sting over because he didn't put Brett over. And in reality, what happened was Hulk came in, did big business, signed an extended deal, and they delayed Sting, turned him heel. He was supposed to pass the torch to Sting at Starrcade 97.
Yep.
And then WCW died.
That is true. What a great way to hammer in this Bash at the Beach 94 show. If you watch the show and you liked it, let us know what your favorite match was or your favorite moment. Let us know in the comments below. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're getting close. So we encourage everyone, if you're listening, to keep subscribing, keep checking out the pods, check out the shorts, because sometimes a lot of what we're doing here with the shorts, they supplement what's happening on the show. So if you're coming here for the show, you're not seeing it on the show, go to the shorts, because the shorts are a part of what we're doing here on the Podski. And we have the Eddie show coming up very soon. We also are getting ready to work on that Scott Hall one as well. So I am super excited for that. We are back to 1999 next week with WWF Fully Loaded 99. We've been away for a little bit, but we're coming back real strong here now for the rest of the summer. So thank you to Teddy for laying this all out for us today and getting all the notes in here. And with that, we will see you next time on the Podski.